Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We're finishing up on the tail end of the spawn. Summer's right around the corner, but there's still a lot of fish up on the bank, still a lot of fish to be seen on beds and be caught. In today's video, I'm gonna tell you 3 things, not necessarily baits related, some are, but 3 things that you've got to have to be successful when bed fishing. Stay tuned, be sure and subscribe, turn on your notification bell.
It's time to rise up, riding high, ain't nothing gonna hold me back. Now I'm on the move, got nothing to lose, like a freight train off the tracks, coming up the mountain.
All right, so bed fishing is one of those things that takes place in the spring when the fish are actually up on the bank spawning. And it seems like it's one of those times of the year, it's one of those presentations for me that I just understand it. I like doing it. I like being able to visibly see the bass that I'm catching. And we've had a couple bed fishing tournaments this year, and Lake Fork was a really good example of that. But there's 3 things that I personally feel like are super important when you're actually trying to visibly see bass up on the bed and catch them while they're spawning. And I think the number one thing, first off, is your eyes and your sunglasses and the optics that you choose in being able to see those fish. There's all kinds of brands out there, all kinds of colored lenses. And for me, I personally use RCI, Right Coast Independent. It's a smaller company, but they make great products, 100% Italian made. And to me, they're the clearest lenses that I've ever put on my face, and they're comfortable. And that's one thing to me when you're bed fishing that it just has to work, is your eyes. If you're straining to see and struggling to see those fish, you're not going to be very effective. I have a couple options that I go with, and one thing that's about sunglasses in people's eyes is they're all different, and they all see differently through different colored lenses. So right here you have your blue, and to me this is kind of a standard color. Everybody makes blue, but it is more for bright sunny days, and to me I like this color option if I'm fishing in crystal clear water and it's really sunny. And all over the country, bedfish look different. They look different, their beds look different, the fish themselves look different. So if I'm in kind of that Ozark region of the country where the water's real clear, the beds are somewhat black, they're not really white, and I'm fishing for largemouth and spotted bass, I'll go with the blue lenses. If I'm fishing a kind of a Florida style fishery where the water's real bronzy colored, or that tea colored, coffee colored, I'll go with a gold color. And to me, it's more of about what you see from the backside. These are more of a brown, bronzy color looking from the backside, and I feel like, to me, it makes the fish pop. When you're looking in that tea colored water, those beds are really gonna stand out in a white, kind of a more sandy colored look. So you want something that's gonna show you those white circles, those white places, those light colored spots on the bottom, but also be able to see those dark fish. Those fish in that colored water are really black colored most of the time, so you'll be able to see those shadows as they're moving around those beds and swimming off those beds. Probably last but not least, and probably my favorite color, this is a new lens. It's built for, everybody knows me, I'm not technical, but this lens is built for more early morning. Like, it's really see-through, you can see right through it even from the outside. But I have come to absolutely love this lens. And for me, it's more that all-around lens color that I can see in that tannic water or crystal clear. Lake Fork has more of a greenish tint to it, and those beds there all over that Texas region of the country, those beds can be half and half. Half of them are light, half of them are dark. A lot of them bed on stumps there. So you need something that's going to be versatile in all those water clarities that Lake Fork and a lot of those lakes have to offer. So I personally feel like something like this that's kind of built more for early mornings, low light conditions, for my eye, it works well to be able to see in all those different changing water bed style of fisheries. But once you have the glasses picked out that you want, probably the next most important thing is, what do I look for? Where do I even begin if I want to go to a lake and find a fish on a bed? And one thing that I try to do is, first off, kind of have an idea of where you're at in the country and what typically those times of the year are that those fish start spawning. In Florida, it starts in January and February. In Texas, late February and March. In Arkansas, for us, it's either late March, early April. So in the further north you go, obviously, the later it's going to get. So kind of know the area that you're in and understand, figure out what the water temps are. For me, I think that water temp is more important than anything else. I think you've got to have that high 50s, low 60s before they're even going to consider spawning. Yes, I think moon phase has some to do with it, and it will push a lot of fish up at one time. If you have the right water temp on that full moon, a lot of cool things can happen on your lakes. For me, I like to start out fishing and looking on the north side of the lake. So if your lake lays east to west, I want to look on those northern pockets first. If your lake lays north to south, I'm going to look on both sides, but I'm going to stay on the north side of the pockets that are there. And you say, well, why would you want to stay on the north side of everything? The answer to that is because that's where those fish are going to start spawning first. The north sides of the pockets and lakes are protected from that cold north wind. So if you have a lot of cold fronts around the spawn and that wind's blowing a lot, it's going to be more protected, and therefore the water's going to stay warmer and it's going to warm up quicker. To me, I think that's just a great place to start, and as the water warms and you start seeing fish on beds and things are kind of progressing, then you can move over to the other sides of the lake. One other thing that I look for is find the area of the lake that they're spawning in. What I mean by that is most times spawning fish are going to go first in a certain area. So you may have to go all over the lake to even start seeing fish moving up. They move up, may move up in certain areas faster, or may move up in a certain area all at one time and they just kind of trickle up in other areas. But for me, once I find the glasses that I want, I know that the water temp's right, I know that things are setting up for the fish to be moving up on beds, then it's just gonna be really simple. I'm gonna make sure that, one, if I can choose a day, I'm gonna pick a good sunny day where I can see what's going on. I'm gonna make sure that my batteries are fully charged. I personally run the Lithium Pros lithium batteries and got the new Motor Guide Tour Pro on my boat. And why is that important? Well, bed fishing, especially for me in a tournament where I'm looking for the 5 biggest ones I can find, I need to go fast and I need to be out there all day. And that's what's important. So I'm gonna put that trolling motor on at least 70%, so way more than half speed. I'm gonna go down the bank. I'm not necessarily trying to find a bass that's locked on. I'm just trying to see what stage the fish are in and what they're actually doing. I wanna know if I go down the bank and I see a bed every 10 feet and there's a little male on every bed, then I know that those females are they're right behind them. And I can then transition where I'm looking from right up there on the bed where all those fish are, those bucks and males are sitting on the beds. I can transition to start looking out a little deeper to see if those females are just sitting out off the bank, off those beds, and getting ready to move up. So I'm not necessarily visibly trying to find the fish that I want to catch as soon as I get there. Now, if I'm going to the lake for a fun fishing day, I'm not stopping until I see the fish that I want to catch. And you're like, well, how do you know which one you want to catch? Well, to me, that is where things get complicated. when I'm going down the bank and I see a big fish, and you gotta know what a big fish is for your certain lake. So if a 4-pounder is big for your lake, and I see something that I think is 4 pounds, I'm gonna stop. What I'll do is if I go over that fish, and obviously if that fish doesn't run off the bed, then that fish is probably gonna be catchable. But a lot of times those big fish will take off immediately as soon as they see you. What I do is I go on down the bank a little ways, I'll make a circle, come back, set way off that bed, and just be visible and not to where they can see you, but you want to be close enough to where you can see them. And you want to just kind of sit there and watch your surroundings, see if those fish move back up on the bed. If those big ones come back up there within a few seconds, that fish is probably catchable. And one thing you got to look for is you got to see if they come up there and let you throw a bait in there. If you can throw a bait in there and they don't take off, you're golden. A lot of times those fish are pretty easy to catch. And you know, you may say, well, how do you know if I see one, it's hanging around, it's not swimming off, it's not leaving and coming back in minutes, it's doing it in 30 seconds or so? How do I know if that fish is catchable or not? Well, to me, if that fish will let you throw a bait in there and not run off, 9 out of 10 times that fish is catchable. Not always do you catch them while they're sitting on the bed. And I've learned this in the last few years. I've caught a lot of my biggest fish off of beds when they were actually sitting off the bed. I know that's kind of confusing, but those big ones, a lot of times they set back off and just wait and watch what's going on. And I'll set my bait on that bed and I'll just kind of sit there and shake it and let the bait sit there. And if those big ones just kind of sit out there and never get up there on it, then I'm going after the fish. I'm gonna get out there and actually try to get that bait in front of that fish's mouth as many times as possible. And a lot of times I think it's more about aggravation than it is about hunger, because those fish are up there for one reason, and that's to spawn. They're not up there to eat. And I think when you're catching those fish off beds that you can visibly see, you're catching them because you're aggravating them. They think there's something up there trying to mess with their eggs, and that's what they're doing. They're protecting that bed. So you want to be able to understand that if a fish you can't see and it keeps running off and it's staying gone for a couple minutes at a time, you probably aren't going to catch that fish that day. Now maybe the next day, because those spawning fish, things change quickly. So you have to understand what you're looking for. You want to make sure if that fish is coming back quick, you want to sit there and watch it, see what it's doing, wait a few minutes, then start pitching your bait in there, see how it reacts. And if that fish is staying close, then you have something you can work. How long do I give a fish? That's a question I get asked a lot. And that's all relevant to what actually is going on. If I'm starting out the tournament and I'm on a big fish and I see her and I think I can catch her, I'm gonna spend an hour if that's what it takes, because you gotta remember, our tournaments, you can only weigh in 5. So I'm trying to catch 5 big ones. So I'm gonna give a big fish a little more time if I think it's catchable than I would if I'm just going down the bank and I see a 2-pounder. Again, there's no perfect way to bed fish that I've found. To me, it's all about being comfortable in what you're looking at. One thing that I do look at is when I'm going down the bank and I see fish that are starting to cruise around, whether you go down the bank, you see a little one run off the bank. If they're up there on the bank where you can see them, more than likely, if it's that spring time of the year, there's fish fixing to spawn, have already been spawning, or that are about to move up. And to me, you just have to learn over time. There's no better way to figure it out than to go out there and explore and just play around with different things. You know, if you have a day where you just want to go learn how to bed fish, pass up some of those fish that are swimming off and not staying and go find you one that's going to be a little bit easier to catch, that will let you throw your bait in there multiple times. One thing that I do, I've got a rig right here that I throw a lot. This is a 25-pound Seagarn Vizex. I like to use fluorocarbon line when I bed fish. I like to use big line, especially if I'm on a lake that has big fish. But a 3/8 ounce tungsten, this is a red sinker. I use a big hook. This is a 4/0 super line EWG, and that's the Yum Christie crawl. I've said this before in other videos, this is the best bed fishing crawl that I've ever used. Something about it, they do not like it. I dip the head of the bait in red. Get that question asked a lot. Why do I do that? For me, it started out with spotted bass. Spotted bass, for some reason around the spawn, hate red. I don't know what it is, whether it's watermelon red, putting a little red on the head of your bait, a red sinker. They just don't like it. And I started figuring out that largemouth don't like it. So it's just something that I do. It's not necessary. It's just something that I have a lot of confidence in. And to me, I think it gets those fish fired up a little bit faster. But you have to have more than one bait. You kind of need what I call a 1-2 punch. This is a really good bait to see what's going on. You say, why do you use white? Well, I want to see, it's not for the fish, because the fish don't eat a white crawl. Yes, they do eat shad, but when they're on the beds, they're not up there to eat. The only reason I throw white is so I can see what the fish is doing. I don't care what color bait I'm using. I'm only caring about what I'm seeing and how those fish are reacting to the bait that I'm throwing up there. And a lot of days, if you have a little stained water, or if you have low light conditions or cloudy or partly cloudy skies where you have clouds moving in and out, you need a bait that you can see, so if that fish runs up there and eats it, you can see that white bait disappear. Not all cases does this bait work to catch that said fish, that particular fish. All fish are different, just like humans. They react differently to different baits. So you need something else to give them another options. This bait right here is the Yum Woolly Bug, and it's a beaver style crawl imitating bait. But if you take this bait and you turn it upside down like this, it looks like a bluegill. And to me, this is another bait that is critical to have when you're bed fishing, because we all know, if you've ever looked at a bed, a bass bed, once the fish get through using it, those bluegill come in there trying to find any eggs that they can eat. Bluegill love to eat the eggs. So this is a really good bait to imitate those bluegill, and it makes those bass mad. Again, they think that bluegill are trying to get their eggs. I like to use a natural color. Green pumpkin purple, green flake, watermelon red is a really, really good option if the water's real clear. But just something that's more of a natural color that's gonna imitate a bluegill. I throw it on the same setup, but I will use a black or green sinker on that option just to give it a little bit different look. Now, your bait choice is to me, there's lots of things out there that work. I have a lot of confidence in these two options, and I think that they are gonna catch 95% of those bass that are out there to be caught. Yes, you can throw big giant bluegill swim baits up there and reel it in front of them every now and then. Get some of those bigger ones to bite if they're just sitting there not really wanting to do anything. But the biggest tip that I can give you for bed fishing is don't get frustrated when you're struggling with a certain fish. If there's a fish up there that's not wanting to bite, they're not all gonna bite. There's days where I have left 8 to 10 pounders on beds that I thought I could catch that just wouldn't bite my stuff. And I think that's the biggest key, is understanding that I've been doing this for 15 years bed fishing, and I really enjoy it. And I've had a lot of practice at it on some of the toughest bed fishing lakes in the country around central Arkansas where I live. And I've just learned that over time, keep it simple. You're not gonna catch every fish, and move down the bank. Find those areas where those fish are starting to move up. And hey, there's times that you're not gonna catch them, but there's some days that those fish are moved up and everything's going right, and you can have some really magical days when those fish are up there spawning. I know there's things that I can't cover in every video, but if you have a question or a comment, drop it down below in the comments of this video and let me know some of your guys' opinions and what you look for and things that you do and certain baits that you use. And who knows, maybe I'll have to give them a try. And if you have any other questions about this specific topic, shoot me a question and I'll get you an answer in the comments below. I hope you guys learned something from this, and I mean, it's one of my favorite things to do. So get out there, practice it, just enjoy your time on the water and enjoy the creation that we have, and get out there and visibly look at those fish while they're on the beds. It's a really cool time of year and a great opportunity to spend a day on the water.